Let's take a look at how to do a cable cast on Knitwise. Hi, welcome to CHeri Knits. I love knitting and I want you to love it too. It's really great to have options, to have choices, and so I'm going to give you a new skill to have in your knitting toolbox. Let's get started. Let's take a look at how to do cable cast on, and I'm going to show you how to do it Knitwise. It's a nice option to have in your knitting toolbox. If you have another cast on you like to do as your default cast on, there's times when you might want to have a slightly different edge. Knitted cast on, cable cast on, both give a more structured edge. And so this is a nice one to know how to do. It's also a pretty decorative edge. So let's get started. With cable cast on, you don't need to have a long tail like you do with long tail cast on, but I always like to leave about 6 or 8 inches so that I've got that tail to weave in and work with at the end. And if you're doing a piece that needs to be seamed together at the end, then you'll want to leave an even longer tail, but 6 to 8 inches is good. And I like to do my slip knot so that the cut end, the tail, is what goes through the center to make the loop, the actual slip stitch, so that when I pull the cut end, that is what tightens up the loop, and that will come in handy later to kind of tighten up the end. So remember, when you're making your slip knot, take the tail through the center to make that stitch. And you can test it before you put it on your needle. If you pull the tail, it should control the size of that stitch. So let's go ahead and put that on there. Now with this, tighten it up, and then you hold that needle in your left hand and the empty needle in your right hand. And for the first cast on, for cable cast on, the first stitch you're going to cast on, you're actually just going to enter this stitch just like you were going to knit it. And so get the yarn over here, just like you're going to knit it, wrap it, bring it through, but instead of taking the stitch off the left needle like you were knitting, you're going to stretch this out a bit, take the tip of the left needle, and you want to scoop the stitch off the needle from underneath and move it over. Now, at this point, your temptation is going to be to tighten it up by pulling this working yarn. Avoid that temptation. Take the tip of the right needle, go in between the 2 stitches that are on the needle, and then tighten it up. And you can see it didn't really tighten up that much. If you tighten it before you enter that space with the right needle, it will feel really tight. And now you're going to wrap and bring that stitch through, knit that stitch through, pull it out, give yourself some space, take the tip of the left needle, dip it down and under, and release that stitch over. And again, remember, don't pull tight on that working yarn. Put your needle in between the 2 stitches, pull tight at that point. Now wrap the yarn, bring it through, pull it out, tip of the left needle goes under, and that later is going to give it a nice kind of a swirly edge. So you just continue doing that until you have 1 less stitch than the desired number you want to have cast on. Pull it out, take the tip of the left needle under, drop it over. All right, so let's just say 2, 4, 6, I only needed to cast on 7 stitches. So for this last one, I would go in between, wrap, knit that through, pull it out. Before I transfer this stitch over to this needle, I would stop. I'm going to hold that needle in my left hand, bring the working yarn to the front in between those 2 needles, and then transfer it over by taking the left needle under and putting it over. And that just kind of squares it off here. It gives it a nicer edge and makes it more consistent as your stitches go. So once you have all your stitches cast on with the cable cast on, you are ready to knit across those stitches. And I have a little sample here to show you of the finished edge. And this is what it looks like. It's just a kind of almost a braided edge, kind of a swoopy edge. It looks really pretty. The only thing that I don't like is that first cast on stitch. You'll notice what happens is this yarn feels like it's in the wrong place, like it's going through the stitch. And so what I like to do with this very last one is just take that tail and pull it. And just pull it through to the front. And then, because you did your slip knot so that the tail controlled the size of the slip knot, you can give it a pull and it tightens up, and look how beautiful that looks. So now it's nice and smooth and tight, and you can weave in your ends or use it to seam or whatever you needed to do. And this is how to do cable cast on Knitwise. And I hope you give it a try. I hope you're able to use it in a project soon. And remember, you can do it because you are the boss of your knitting. I hope you're able to give this technique a try. Maybe use it to cast on for your next project. And leave a comment below. Let me know if you liked it. Let me know if you used it. And tell me what you're knitting these days. See you next time.